Welcome back to Midnight Oil, where we explore the mysteries of the universe and the stories that shape our world. I'm Keeg.
And I'm Tab. Tonight, we're turning our gaze skyward to talk about the moon, Earth's closest neighbor, and the celestial body that's inspired humans for thousands of years.
We'll dive into its formation, its influence on life on Earth, and even some of the wild myths and conspiracy theories surrounding it.
And of course, we'll touch on humanity's efforts to explore it, from the Apollo missions to what the future of lunar exploration holds.
And here's a quick teaser. Did you know the moon is slowly drifting away from Earth? Stick around to find out how fast and what that means for our planet.
All right. So let's launch ba-dum-ts, into the story of the moon.
Not the inserted drum.
Oh
So
man.
I'm gonna throw this one to you at the beginning this time. But this is a topic that I actually am really excited about. I love space, and the moon I think is one of those things that while it gets talked about a lot, I feel like a lot of people don't actually know about it. You know what I mean? Does that
Yeah,
make
no, I
sense?
feel you.
I
I
feel
feel
like
you.
a lot of people aren't educated on the moon. They just like know that it happens and they know that it has like different phases,
Mm-hmm.
but I don't think they know like what the moon is.
I mean, fair, yeah. It's a rock.
It's not just a boulder, it's a rock.
Oh man. So we can start with the Big Bang that wasn't quite the Big Bang, but it was still a massive collision, and I'm talking about the giant impact hypothesis, the leading theory for how the moon was formed. So, if we go back about 4.5 billion years ago, when the solar system was still in its chaotic infancy, a Mars sized object named Theia is believed to have collided with the early Earth. This wasn't just a bump, though, it was a cosmic cataclysm. So, you may be asking, well, did the Earth just explode? No, but close. The impact was so intense that it sent a huge amount of debris from both Theia and the Earth into orbit around our planet. Over time, that debris clumped together thanks to gravity and eventually formed what we now call the moon. So basically, the moon is like Earth's cosmic little sibling born out of a chaotic family moment.
And it's older than
TV.
you and I.
Yeah, very old. Very old.
We're
We
not
have,
that old.
well, pretty old. But we do have some solid evidence to back this theory up. For starters, the isotopic composition of rocks from the Earth and the Moon are almost identical. This suggests that they came from the same source material. So you may be asking, well, but what about the moon structure? Doesn't that also support the giant impact hypothesis? Well, yeah, of course it does, because they're fucking same. The moon the moon doesn't have a significant iron core like Earth does. Most of Thea's heavy elements, like iron, got absorbed into Earth's core during the collision, leaving the moon with a much lighter, less dense composition. So, Earth got the lion's share of the iron, kind of vibes. And here's a little fun fact. Did you know that without this collision, Earth's tilt and rotation might be totally different? The moon plays a huge role in stabilizing our planet, which helped create the conditions for life to actually thrive.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well, this is crazy. So I'm going to get into the very early solar system. So the solar system's foundation, the formation of the solar system itself is really interesting. So during the early stages of the solar system, planetary collisions were very common, like as common as protoplanets, and this really chaotic period allowed these huge celestial bodies like the moon to form through violent interactions with each other. So just imagine like Dwayne the Rock Johnson pummeling another Dwayne the Rock Johnson and then becoming one Dwayne the Rock Johnson. Like that
Whoa.
that's what's going on here. So after the impact, it kind of messed with Earth's stability where the moon's gravitational pull actually began stabilizing Earth's axial tilt. And this stabilization prevented extreme climate swings and it created basically a more predictable environment that was essential for the development of life on Earth, like Tab was talking about, while it also helps generate the ocean tide. And that's ultimately what played a critical role in the evolution of early life by influencing different coastal ecosystems. So,
Oh.
a fun perspective to kind of think about is like without the moon, Earth might look like Mars with an unstable axis leading to chaotic climates and extreme temperature shifts. It's a fun way to look at it. And we were talking about how the moon is drifting away. It drifts away from Earth at a rate of, drum roll please, 1.5 inches every year. So basically nothing. But over, billions of years, right? Like over 1 billion years, you're talking 3 billion inches.
That's crazy, actually.
And obviously, that can significantly affect tides and the Earth's rotation and whatnot. Isn't that crazy, though? Like to think
Mm-hmm.
about? Like, obviously, oh man. So, like, 100 years from now, that's only like, what, 300 inches? Like, that's nothing. But
Yeah.
in reality, everything in space works on a larger time scale. So when you get into the billions of years, yeah, the moon, hasta la vista, baby.
Jeez Louise. That's crazy to think about.
Yeah, yep. And I think it's also like good to think about what like imagine looking up in the night sky every single night, like because obviously some nights you don't see the moon. But imagine looking up every night and there being no moon. Just no moon. No moon. Anyway,
That sucked.
yeah. Yeah. So the moon's gravitational pull on Earth is very important because of the tides. And the reason that's important is because the moon's gravitational force creates tidal bulges in the Earth's oceans that lead to high and low tides. So they played a very critical role in shaping the early coastal ecosystems where life may have transitioned from sea to land. So
Hmm.
all these fish started saying, "Hey, what about them legs? How about that air?" And they said, "Let me breathe."
Hey, yo.
And now now we have land creatures that are sucking up the oxygen. They go, they're loving it, right? But these tidal pools created very nutrient rich environments that provided habitats for evolving organisms.
Hmm.
And while the Earth's rotation is kind of slowing, right? Because of the tidal forces causing friction between Earth's oceans and its rotation, we're actually slowing down. So, over billions of years, this has actually lengthened Earth's days from around 6 hours during its early formation to the current 24-hour day. Isn't that crazy? So back
That is,
then,
yeah.
so when you think and I'm not gonna get religious, but when you think about the Bible, right? People in the Bible lived longer, and so did historical figures just throughout history. So that makes me think like I wonder if they lived longer because the days were shorter, or yeah, the days were shorter.
Hmm.
You know what I mean? So
Yeah, so
like
they lived more days.
yeah, they technically they lived more days because back then they were probably like, oh, okay, one day they're not counting 24 hours, they're counting day night, so that's a day for them. So I guess the Bible was like the Bible reference wasn't necessary, but just in general, and humans have only been around for millions of years or something according to the studies or whatever, but that's still like not 24 hours. So each individual second we spend going forwards, we're technically gaining more age.
Hmm.
Which is, I mean, it's
That
just crazy
sucks.
to think about. Yeah. Yeah, so basically a billions of years ago you would have been like people would have been living to like 320 years old.
Yeah.
So just think about it that way.
Hmm.
And, that process is still ongoing with Earth's rotation, slowing about, and get this, 1.8 milliseconds every century. It's nothing. It's nothing. A
Dang.
century is 100 years. So
That's still gonna be crazy though, like
over time, yeah.
way down the line.
Yeah, I mean, just imagine in another few billion years, one day is going to be 48 hours. And then people, if the average life expectancy stays like 80, you're going to live to 40.
Damn.
Obviously modern medicine's going to change that, but for the most part, you're becoming younger
Hmm.
while you're getting older.
That's wild to think about though.
Yeah, like you're literally, yeah, you're getting older, but because of Earth's rotation, you're getting younger.
Hmm.
Yeah,
Interesting.
yeah, but that kind of that brings us into what you're going to talk about.
Yeah. So let's shift gears from science stuff to culture and history. So the moon hasn't just been like, this a moon, a space rock. Ooh, cool. It's actually been a significant guiding light for humanity for thousands of years. So, for starters, we actually have touched on this in some of our other episodes, whether that was the one about time and calendars or the one about Egypt. We've seen a lot of the moon's impact on culture already. So let's dive into it a little bit more. To start with, ancient civilizations relied heavy on the moon for their calendars. Like we learned, there's lunar based calendars, there's the solar based calendars, there's a mix of both. It's crazy. It's crazy. But a month was roughly the time it took for the moon to complete one cycle, from new moon to full moon and back again, and that rhythm was essential for tracking time. The moon also played a huge role in the agriculture. The farmers in ancient times used the moon to plan their planting and harvesting. Even today, some farming traditions, like planting by the phases of the moon, still persist. The idea is that the moon's gravitational pull affects moisture in the soil, just like it does the tides. So it's really interesting how something so far away could have such a tangible impact on everyday life. But the moon wasn't just practical, it was also spiritual. The moon has been central to a lot of myths, religions, and literature across cultures. In Greek mythology, Selene was the goddess of the moon, often depicted driving a chariot across the night sky. In Hindu tradition, Chandra is the god of the moon, associated with calmness and nourishment. But it doesn't stop there. The moon has inspired countless stories and poems, everything from werewolves to romantic odes. Shakespeare alone wrote about the moon in A Midsummer Night's Dream, Romeo and Juliet, and more. So the moon has been seen as like the ultimate muse throughout the centuries. But here's a little fun fact for you. Did you know that some languages have gendered associations with the moon? In German, the moon der Mond potentially is masculine, while in French, the moon la lune potentially is feminine. So it's a fun little linguistic twist.
I wonder if that's because of where the languages stem from, and
It
like
would
the
potentially.
the deep like mythology of the moon and where the language comes from. I wonder if that's why.
It could be because
That would
like
make sense.
in some of religions the moon is a god, and in other religions the moon is a like rather the moon has a god or a goddess that like rules the moon kind of thing. So that you know that could check out.
Yeah, that would make sense. Kind of wrapping that up. Just kind of seeing like a dual role type of thing. I think it's kind of crazy how the moon has served as a scientific guide, helping us understand like the natural rhythms of Earth, and a spiritual guide that kind of inspired myths and rituals and artistic expression like throughout human history, basically.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's like really cool. And that's just something we have written down, but I do genuinely want to say more about that being like the amount of just what's the word? Like the amount of sway that it has, the amount of inspiration. The amount of inspiration that it has had throughout human history is crazy. Like almost every ancient culture has written something about the sun or the moon.
Yeah. No, very much that.
So, I mean, I think that's just, putting that out there because I think that's really important. And the word lunacy comes from the belief that the moon can influence human behavior, especially during a full moon, which is where that myth comes from. While the connection isn't scientifically proven, it's a testament to the moon's long standing impact on cultural perceptions. Hence, lunacy. Luna.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I knew that from a song actually. And I know specifically at least one of our listeners knows that song. If you've ever listened to Emily Autumn, you get it. I think it's Girls, Girls, Girls. It's a very interesting song. I love it actually. But
Step
anyways,
right up. I'm lying.
let's
I didn't know anything about it. I googled it. Shame on me.
No, that's funny. But let's dive into humanity's greatest leap towards the moon, the Apollo missions. So this is a very exciting chapter in the moon's history when humans decided to go there. The Apollo missions weren't just about science, they were a massive flex during the Cold War's space race. And when I tell you, I know of the space race and I reference it, I feel like I've referenced it a lot. but I probably actually haven't. But I just love being like, oh yeah, the Great Space Race, not really knowing the full extent. So let's actually learn the full extent together. So the space race kicked off in the late 1950s with the United States and the Soviet Union competing to prove their technological and ideological dominance. It started with satellites like Sputnik in 1957, but quickly escalated to sending humans into space. And here's the crazy thing, the Soviets were ahead at first. They put the first man in space, Yuri Gagarin,
Mm.
in 1961, and that was like a big wake up call for the US. And that's when President John F. Kennedy stepped up and declared that the US would land a man on the moon by the end of the decade. So it wasn't just about exploration anymore. It was about proving that democracy and capitalism could outpace communism in technological innovation. And that's where the Apollo missions come in. So let's talk about, the big one, Apollo 11. Basically, this was the culmination of years of research, trial, and error. On July 20th, 1969, astronauts Neil Armstrong and Buzz Aldrin became the first humans to set foot on the moon, while Michael Collins stayed in orbit aboard the command module. And see, I didn't even know about old boy Michael Collins.
Michael Collins.
It's always Neil and Buzz, but what about old Michael Collins? But we move on. And, we can't forget Armstrong's iconic words. That's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind. Such a slay. Like, he scripted that on the way up, I swear. I swear. Because there's no way. We've talked about this, I think, in our very first episode of Area 51. There is no way, if I stepped foot on the moon as the very first person on the moon,
No, here we go.
I would be like, holy shit, I'm on the moon! Not some inspirational bullshit. But, anyways.
uh,
Continuing on. So the moon landing wasn't just a technical achievement, it was a moment that united humanity, even if only for a short time. Over 600 million people watched it live, making it one of the most significant events in modern history. And, what did we learn from Apollo 11? We actually learned a lot. The astronauts brought back moon rocks, which helped scientists confirm the giant impact hypothesis. Ring ring. Look at that. Referencing back. And we also learned more about the moon's surface, its lack of atmosphere, and its potential for future exploration. But actually, here's a really cool thing that I've learned during all of this. Did you know that the footprints left by the Apollo astronauts are still there? With no atmosphere or weather to erode them, they could last for millions of years.
True. I did know that actually.
I did not. That was cool.
I think that's the first fun fact that I did know.
Hmm.
I think I think out
Slay.
of all of them, that's the first one.
Very much a slay. But the Apollo missions and all of that exploration set the stage for what's next. Let's get into that.
Yeah, moon rocks, not the drugs, but the lunar pieces of mineral. Samples from Apollo missions revealed that the moon is 4.5 billion years old, as we said earlier, supporting that giant impact hypothesis Tab was talking about. And the rocks showed the evidence of volcanic activity and helped confirm that the moon has no atmosphere or liquid water. So,
Period.
the space technology innovations of the Apollo program led to the advances in computer technology, material science, and propulsion systems that still influence the space exploration industry today. Technology like miniaturized computers, fuel cells, insulation materials, stuff like that, they were pioneered for these missions. These were brand new. Nobody had these miniaturized computers, nobody had these fuel cells, very little insulation materials, nothing like this. But now we enjoy them every day. Miniature computers, your phone, fuel cells. I don't know enough about fuel cells, but probably like your heating, maybe. I don't know. I don't know nothing about that. Insulation materials. Your house is warm. All right, yeah, getting out. So I'm sure it means something other than that, but that's how I took it. And I'm gonna steal your little fun fact. Did you know that the Apollo astronauts left mirrors on the moon?
No, I didn't actually.
The only reason is I'm 2 for 2 today. Well, 2 for 4. But I did know this because there's a Big Bang Theory episode that I actually just recently watched again, where they go to the top of their apartment complex building and they shoot a laser at the mirror and then catch it again.
Oh.
Yeah. So scientists still use them today to bounce lasers off the moon and measure its distance from Earth with incredible precision, which is why we know that it's drifting away about 1.5 inches every year. And I'm gonna let you know, we didn't know that shit before they went up to the moon because our instruments didn't know how you aren't gonna be able to tell that the moon moved an inch and a half last year without
No.
more technology, right? So that's how we knew about it. And there's a lot of modern stuff going on with the moon, but actually not a lot of like manned missions. You'd think that with Elon and Jeff Bezos and all of them, you would think that we have missions to the moon, but there's not really a reason to. Like,
Been there, done that kind of thing.
yeah, and it's rocks. Sorry.
Yeah.
The Artemis missions, NASA's Artemis program, it launched in the 2020s and it aims to return humans to the moon for the first time since 72. And they want to, I guess their goals, if I'm understanding this right, is to establish a sustainable human presence on the moon. I don't get that. I don't understand why they would want a human presence on the moon because you're not going to terraform the moon. That's not going to happen. Mars makes more sense because it has like water there. Well, it has ice, but it basically they want to use the moon as a stepping stone for future missions to Mars. So it's not as expensive, I guess, which that makes a little more sense to me.
Yeah.
Artemis 1 or the first successfully orbited the moon without a crew and it's paving the way for crewed missions like Artemis 2 and eventually the moon landing with Artemis 3. But like I was saying, the private space companies are just putting in so much work. Like if you're a fan of space exploration, this is the greatest time ever to like be alive. Well, obviously, it's a very small time span. It's been the past 60 years, but like there's a lot going on, right? You have all these people with all this money, hate them or not, they're doing stuff for space at least, and it's cool. We got cool stuff. Like we have the Hubble telescope, which I guess is not them, but it's really cool. The pictures coming from the Hubble Space Telescope are really cool. But SpaceX and Blue Origin are playing a huge role in lunar exploration, where SpaceX is developing Starship, which is basically a rocket for the moon missions under NASA's Artemis program. So, in conjunction, they're helping NASA. And then Blue Origin has space for its Blue Moon lander to support lunar infrastructure. And these private initiatives are basically just kind of accelerating innovation, and they aim to reduce the cost of space travel, because I don't know how far we are from it, but imagine how cool it would be to like go to the moon for like $100. If you can, I don't know if I would do it now, but if I was like guaranteed to be safe, like if it was the same odds as like a parachute not opening or something, I would maybe do it.
Maybe, maybe. I'd have to really think about it,
Yeah,
to be
that's a really
honest.
think about it type of thing. But yeah, I mean, I love space. I think it's cool that there are people out there that are really pushing the envelope, because I don't know if you knew this, and I don't see it in our research. There is a very small budget for the space program. It's like embarrassingly small.
Mm-hmm.
And without these guys, we would probably not be doing a lot of the stuff that we're doing. Or, I mean, I don't even know if the Hubble Space Telescope would have happened, because they would have had to spend all their money on that. So, there's, politics aside, right? You have people who are using money to kind of further the education. I've always been a space guy though, so I'm a little biased, but I think it's cool. I think if I had a bunch of money, I would probably find a way to get into space and like mine asteroids or something and have like space diamonds. I don't know. Like I'd
Space
be a
diamond.
fucking moron with it. At least they're doing something productive. I would be like mining, yeah, I'd be mining space diamonds or something. I don't know.
That's crazy work.
Which at the end of the podcast we'll talk a little bit about something that Tab and I found later on. Uh but we were talking about space rocks and stuff at one point. But yeah,
True.
take us ahead.
All of that stuff being explained, let's dive into some of the mysteries and myths about the moon. So we're gonna start with like a silly, goofy one. The moon being made of cheese, and like I always thought that that was just kind of silly. But this one, funny enough, actually dates back to medieval Europe, where it was used as a metaphor for gullibility. Like, if you believed that, you'd believe anything. It wasn't meant to be serious, but it did stick around as a fun, silly idea. I mean, who wouldn't want the moon to be made out of cheese, to be so real with you? But then there's also myths about the moon that aren't necessarily silly, goofy, lighthearted like that. Taking it back to the culture aspect, the moon is, of course, deeply connected to spirituality and life. You got the Greek goddess Selene. So in Hindu mythology, there's Chandra, and he actually represented calmness and nourishment. He's associated with the cycles of life and is believed to influence our emotions, which, if we pause for a second, I get that. Because if the moon has effects on the tide, water and shit, we're made of water. So just let that sink in. Astrology girlies, I'm on your side.
The moon does have a lot to do with astrology, so.
Mm-hmm. Very much that. Very much that. But there's the moon cycles, the waxing and the waning, and they've long been related to the rhythms of human life. In some cultures, it's actually tied to fertility, while in others, it was just, timekeeper for rituals and festivals. So the moon has been a universal symbol but the interpretations among the different cultures vary so much. And there's a few other myths that we'll dive into here. In Chinese mythology, there's, and I'm gonna butcher this, Chang'e, Chang'e, Chang'e. Yeah, Chang'e, maybe. I don't know. But,
I think
she
you
was
did your
the,
best.
yeah, I tried. She was the goddess who lives on the moon. And she's part of the Mid-Autumn Festival, where people celebrate by eating mooncakes and admiring the full moon. And we can't forget about, the werewolves, thanks to all of the European folklore. The full moon is going to be forever linked to transformation and mystery. And it's always like, that whole thing when you're at work and you're having like a crazy day, people are just acting crazy that day, and they're like either really rude or like a bunch of weird shits happening, and you always like, it is a full moon today. I've always heard that from so many people. Like so many. But yeah, so that there's some of those sprinkled in there for you. But why don't we move on to some more of the moon hoaxes that you got for us, Keeg?
Oh man, you're gonna like these, Tab, because you have talked to me about these.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna go through them, and then I tried to Tab and I, we don't have disagreements very often, but I was
No.
getting a little peeved about this moon situation. All right, she's on the moon being flat, the Earth being flat. Tab didn't think that. I just threw that in there
No,
for flavor.
no, no.
But we're gonna go through some of the things, and then you're gonna tell me. It'll be a little more interactive. You're gonna tell me if you've been swayed or you're gonna stay. All right,
Okay. Okay.
stay or sway is what I'm gonna call it. Right off the dome. All right. Number one, the flag waving on the moon. Right. The
Yeah.
flag appears to wave due to its stiff frame and movement during the placing, not the wind. Have I swayed you, or are you staying?
Well, I think I'm gonna stay
Okay.
on the side of it being fake. The moon landing being
Yes,
fake.
yes.
Okay. Yeah, I'm staying on. That shit's fake.
Okay, fair. Yeah, basically, the explanation is the flag isn't waving due to the wind. It appears to ripple because of the design and movement during the placement. It was made of nylon fabric and supported by a horizontal crossbar at the top to make it stand out in the vacuum. When the astronauts planted the flag, they twisted the pole into the lunar surface, causing it to kind of vibrate. And in the absence of air resistance, the vibrations caused the fabric to move, creating an illusion of waving. And the photos and videos show the flag in a fixed, slightly crumpled state once the motion stopped. So
Hmm.
that's the explanation. All right. Next claim, pointing out that the stars are missing from the photographs, suggesting the images were staged in a studio.
I, you know, I think I can see the logic behind some of these because you can argue that, yeah, the cameras were bad back in the day, but I still think it's fake, so I'm gonna stay.
Okay. Okay. My thought behind this is if they're going through all of this like this work to make it realistic, I feel like they would have added the stars. I think that's a weird thing to take out,
Well,
personally.
editing is not, that advanced back then either, I would
That's
assume.
true, but you're talking the same time Star Wars is coming out, so they probably could have done something.
I mean, yeah, fair. That's fair. Maybe they didn't notice.
That's true. Maybe that's true. So their explanation, because I wasn't there. uh, The lack of visible stars is due to camera exposure settings, where
Oh.
the surface of the moon, illuminated by direct sunlight, is extremely bright. So, to capture all of the details of the astronauts, the equipment, the lunar surface, the camera's aperture and shutter speed were adjusted to prevent overexposure, and stars, being much dimmer than the brightly lit surface, didn't appear in the photos because they were too faint to register at those settings. And this is kind of the same phenomenon that occurs on Earth when taking photos. Oh yeah, the Earth photos. And in bright daylight, the stars are invisible unless the camera is specifically set to capture them. And there's also a little bit of like proof thrown into these explanations. I'm just gonna list off a couple of them, just because I think it's useless to just basically say the same shit over and over. But modern astrophotography shows the same effect when bright objects are in the foreground, and Apollo astronauts, now this is word of mouth, reported seeing the stars with their eyes. No shit. During the meeting, the missions,
Whoa.
confirming their visibility outside the camera's limitations. So, I mean, I don't think that that is great proof because they could just be lying, but I believe them.
I mean.
But that leads us to the third one. You may not be sold yet. I understand. All right, the claim that some photos show shadows that appear to fall in different directions, suggesting multiple light sources like those used on a movie set.
Yeah, I'm gonna stay.
Okay, okay, okay. I respect holding the ground on your
Yeah.
beliefs. I respect it. So the explanations that I found were the sun obviously being the primary light source of the moon, but the moon's uneven terrain and highly reflective surfaces caused shadows to appear inconsistent. The moon is very bright. Like it's like white gray. So there's a lot of reflecting going on. On the moon, the lunar soil reflects sunlight in all directions, acting as a secondary light source. Scattering light illuminates areas in shadow or makes shadows appear less defined. The perspective of the camera also played a role in how the shadows appear in photos, and they're often on uneven ground. They may seem to diverge or converge when viewed from certain angles. And this is kind of the similar effect to looking at shadows cast by objects on a hilly surface here on Earth. And the little proof that I have located is the angles of the shadows are inconsistent when properly measured against the terrain and perspective. And the physics simulations, which, you have to take those with the grain of salt. But I feel like this, if they're using some like simulations, they're probably accurate. I don't know. I don't know anything about them. But they replicated the lighting conditions on the moon, confirming the validity of the photos. So that's what I got. And tell us at home if you believe or don't believe the moon landing. I do think that we definitely, like, now we're never gonna know if it was fake, right? Because there could be some bullshit AI thing where they say here's stuff that we quote unquote uncovered to like validate these things, or here's some other photos that mysteriously didn't show up back then that we have now. Like, we're never gonna
Mhm.
know now. It's just like we there's just so much out there that we're never going to know if it was not true or false. Like, we just won't know. So, based on the information that we have, I would look circa 2015 or something on the moon landing, and I would come up with your own answers.
I still think it's fake. I'll probably forever think it's fake. To be so real.
And, it's respectable that you will die on this hill.
I will. I will.
One of
And
these
that,
days. One of these
it
days.
it circles back to the great space race, The US wants to be better, so they were like, "Yo, we gotta fake this. We gotta fake it. We gotta."
we got
I
we
just
gotta do it. We just gotta we gotta be first.
Yeah, and that's again, I'll die on that hill.
I respect it.
Yeah.
I respect it.
So moving on. Let's leave the myths and all that good stuff behind, and let's dabble back into science here. So, the moon may be our closest celestial neighbor, but it still holds, some mysteries here and there. And one of the biggest puzzles is why the far side of the moon has so many more craters than the side we see from Earth. Do you have any guesses?
About the far side?
Yeah, why it has more craters than the part that we get to see.
My guess is going to be because the part that we see is locked to us. Like
Okay.
I don't think the moon rotates like that.
Yeah.
Unless I'm wrong.
I mean, you're close. That's relatively part of it. So the near side of the moon benefits from the Earth's gravitational pull, which acts as a bit of a shield, deflecting some of the meteoroids and debris that, comes its way. But the far side, on the other hand, is left exposed to space, which is making it a prime target for impacts of things. So the far side, or the dark side of the moon, is actually rougher. And that's why it's covered in all of those craters instead of the smooth, dark patches we see on the side, the near side. But yeah, those smooth areas are called Maria, one of the two.
Hmm.
And they were formed by ancient volcanic activity, which filled in craters with lava billions of years ago. And for some reason, the far side didn't experience as much volcanic activity, so its craters were never
Hmm.
smoothed over. So it's like the moon's two faces tell two completely different stories. But there's also another mystery that's kind of exciting: the water ice in the lunar craters. So, what's the deal with that? Well, scientists have discovered evidence of water ice in permanently shadowed craters near the moon's poles. These craters are so deep and dark that sunlight never reaches the bottom, keeping them cold enough to preserve ice for billions of years.
Holy.
Yeah. Can you imagine the diseases that are in there? Anyways.
Could you imagine putting like your chicken breasts in that freezer and then a billion years later they're still good?
Now that's a fucking deep freeze. If I've
That
ever
is
seen one,
that's a
bro.
deep freeze.
like, like, let's be real.
I guess they wouldn't be good, but they would still be frozen.
Well, I mean, to be honest, they might, because this next cute little fact that I have about it, if we were able to mine that ice, it could be used for drinking water, oxygen, and even rocket fuel.
What?
Yeah, because it would just be water, like ice water, like ice.
I would pay $200 for some moon water. I think that's my max, but I think that would be like filtered, obviously. But like,
Yeah.
I think that'd be cool.
No.
imagine,
Yeah.
imagine being able to drink moon. I don't know, moon water. That sounds like
That
drugs.
would be cool. I feel like that would very much be a lot more expensive than $200. To be so real
Yeah,
with you,
that's probably all the billionaires drink is moon water.
that's crazy work.
All in their like Voss water bottles. It's not actually Earth water. It's moon water. It's Martian water simply melted from Martians' hands themselves. Like I don't know. They're
Hey,
probably
yo.
they definitely got different water.
I mean, true. That's true. They're
Meanwhile,
built
I'm
different.
drinking that lead water.
Mmm.
Mmm.
Yum.
I get all of my I get all of my daily iron through my faucet.
Yo, that's
I
crazy.
actually won't drink tap water. Did you know that?
I have a filter on my sink.
Yeah, I would never. Well, I if I had a filter, I'd be cool with it. But like, I don't drink tap water ever. Like
Yeah, no,
even
I
even
won't
at
drink it.
restaurants, sometimes I'll ask if they have bottled water,
No,
and
that's
then they're like,
wild.
"Yeah, $2 extra." I'm like, "Brother, what are we in a drought? $2 for one bottle of water?" Anyway.
Inflation, to be honest.
Yeah, they're
But
inflating the water, putting it back in the air.
I mean, true, 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 true. But yeah, so NASA's Artemis program that you were talking about, one of their plans was actually to explore the icy regions. Now, if they did that, not too sure, but that was one of their plans that they had. A really interesting thing that I actually just found is scientists actually estimate that there could be hundreds of millions of tons of water ice on the moon. And so that's enough to keep lunar
Wait,
explorers hydrated for centuries.
wait. You said hundreds of tons?
Hundreds hundreds of millions.
Hundreds of millions of tons?
Yeah.
God damn it! The whole fucking rock is ice.
Yeah. Yeah.
What? I didn't know it was that much.
Yeah, it's just crazy. But yeah, so let's dive into a little bit of kind of the moon's futures and humanity's plans along those lines. And this is gonna be like super duper 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 quick. So basically, the moon is being used as a stepping stone for humanity's journey to Mars and beyond. And that kind of goes back to, talking about the Artemis program and hoping to have a human presence on the moon by the 2030s with a base near the lunar south pole, which is actually where the water ice deposits are, which is critical for the life support and fuel production. But it's not just NASA. The European Space Agency has actually proposed a moon village, which is a collaborative base for science and industry. Meanwhile, companies like SpaceX and Blue Origin are also working on these, and it's becoming a global effort almost to figure out how to make it to Mars and using the moon as a stepping stone. But here's something interesting that kind of ties into what you were talking about, like, in the sense of like, why haven't we been back to the moon? And how Artemis is the stepping stone, that kind of blah, blah, blah. I've said it like 50 times now. But the launching rockets from the moon takes way less energy than launching them from Earth. The moon's lower gravity makes it a much more efficient starting point for deep space missions. So I thought that was kind of cool. So that's like one of like the biggest advantages of having a lunar base, I guess. But here is where we dive into kind of the moon's resources and what we can have from the moon. We can mine resources from the moon. So, if you didn't know, the moon isn't just a barren rock. It's actually packed with valuable materials that could revolutionize technology and space exploration. So, first up, we have helium 3, which is a rare isotope that's incredibly scarce on Earth, but relatively abundant on the moon. Helium 3 has the potential to be a clean and powerful fuel for nuclear fusion, which could provide nearly limitless energy without harmful byproducts. And that sounds amazing. So the moon essentially can become a fucking gas station for spaceships. How cool would that be? And the
That would be
second,
crazy. Sorry.
no,
I
you're
want to touch on that. There was a I don't know if it was the Jetsons movie or an episode of the Jetsons, but they had like space gas stations. And I always wondered how that would work because I don't know if regular gas cars would work in space because I think they need to ignite and there's no oxygen in the air in space. I just
yeah.
started thinking about that.
No,
Anyway,
that's fair.
well, now I'm gonna ponder that after the podcast.
Yeah.
I just like I I like low key blew my own mind. Like I don't think a regular car would work in space.
Yeah, I don't think
Not that
so.
you could go anywhere, but
Yeah, I mean, fair. You just gotta be floating there, to be honest. But there's more minerals and shit on the moon. It's actually rich in rare metals like titanium, which are crucial for advanced manufacturing and tech industries. And then there's the water ice, which we've already mentioned. You can split it into hydrogen and oxygen, and you've got rocket fuel. Meow.
meow.
Meow. But there are, fortunately and unfortunately for the people that, want to build the base on the moon and dig into the moon, and fortunately for the people that want to preserve the moon and say, hey, don't mess with that. There's ethical and environmental considerations to think about. For one, who the fuck owns the moon? Nobody, really. The Outer Space Treaty of 1967 says no country can claim the moon, but it doesn't fully address private companies or, resource extraction. So potentially we could end up with a space gold rush where everyone's scrambling to grab resources without clear rules or regulations. And that sounds really fucking messy. And there's also the question of, preserving the moon as a natural and cultural landmark. Mining operations could damage its surface and disrupt scientific studies. Plus, the moon holds the cultural and spiritual significance for many people. And do we really want to turn the moon into a goddamn industrial zone like half of the fucking world is already? We would just ruin another planet. But, it's neither here nor there. But it is here, and it is there. So
It
be
is
mindful.
everywhere. I do think. I mean, what do you think about it?
I, personally, I say it could be, huge if we did, but I also, personally, my morals and ethics, I'm just like, leave the fucking moon alone. We've done enough.
Yeah.
Find a different planet.
I mean, I feel like if there was stuff like maybe if we like sectioned off like a 5 foot area or something, as long as we don't like take over the planet. I think about this a lot ever since like the space like actually I think I just thought about this for a long time. Who is going to get to own the things in space because they were already regulating SpaceX's like ability to leave like the or the atmosphere.
Hmm.
Like they were trying to regulate that, or I think they do regulate it or whatever. So like if you're an independent person, like you and I can't make a rocket and like fly up to Earth's orbit. Like we can't do that. We're not allowed to do that. At
That's
least not in the
crazy.
United States. I don't know if that's a worldwide rule or whatever, but that just makes me think like eventually some government, probably our government because the United States wants to own everything. Is they're going to try and say, "Hey, we own that because we were there first." And I don't want us to do that to the moon, bro. I think that would get so messy.
Yeah, I mean, that's why we have the Outer Space Treaty of 1967.
Oh, did you
Yeah.
talk about that already?
Yeah, it says no country can claim the moon.
Oh, well, that's good. Can they claim anything else?
I no, I don't know. I haven't read the Outer Space Treaty of 1967 yet.
Oh, yeah. Know it well. Know it well. I read it. I was just like seeing if you also read it recently.
Word. Yeah, no,
No,
I haven't picked it
I'm
up
just kidding.
in a while.
Yeah. Uh, but word. Yeah, I didn't know that because I was just like, damn, someone's gonna try and say they eventually like own the moon or something. Or
I
that
mean, I
it's
could
that
see that.
that clip of Kanye where he's like, I'm gonna buy the Earth. How much money is the Earth? I'm like, what is
I
this
give you
brother saying?
$5.
He's like, I'm gonna buy the world. I'm like, what?
Dude, come
Well, why?
on.
And then nothing matters. Nothing is anyway.
No, yeah.
Anyway,
Piggybacking off of what you said about like having a cute little like 5 foot area, some scientists have actually proposed like protective zones on the moon, similar to kind of how national parks work on Earth. Basically to just preserve its most important features. So I thought that was kind of cool. But yeah, I mean, we've hit time, and I feel like we
way time.
can.
That's why I shut up that last one. I always got something to say. I got something to say.
I mean, hey, be how it be. But we can wrap things up and reflect on what the moon means to us today and what it can mean for future generations. So, I'll take you in.
For me, it lets me know if the werewolves are out.
True. That's facts. Gotta be wary.
That's right. It's the werewolf timer, the natural
Mm-hmm.
werewolf timer, which, the longer that the earth spins, the less frequent the werewolves are going to be coming out due to the days becoming longer. So,
I
fear
wonder what
not.
the werewolves are gonna be doing once the moon just gets too far away. You can't see it.
Yeah, in like 2 billion years. Yeah, I have no
Yeah.
idea. They're probably going to like have sentient trees walking around making werewolf statues or something. I don't know.
Mm, we'll see
Who
when we
knows?
get there. But
Take us out.
yeah, from its fiery beginnings to its serene glow in the night sky, the moon has been a constant companion to Earth and humanity.
It's shaped our tides, inspired our dreams, and now it's guiding us towards the future of space exploration.
All right, now it's your turn, and I'm asking you specifically. Yeah, you listening right now. What's your favorite moon fact or myth? Or do you think humanity should focus more on Mars? Let us know in the comments below, or you can message us on any of our social medias that you can find in the description below on whatever you're listening on.
And thank you for tuning in to this lunar journey with Midnight Oil. That's us. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, do whatever. Tab kind of went through it, but we're going to see you next time. And I just love diving into the history, the mystery, and the science of everything. But until then, keep looking up.
And that leads us to our Patreon shout
Oh boy,
outs.
Patreon, Patreon, Patreon. How are you, Patreon?
But yeah, so we have a few Patreon members to shout out. First one is Zaid slash Agrode. Second one is Dakota, that's Keeg's partner. The third one is Cameron, that's my partner. And the fourth one is Stacy, that's my mom. So what a slay. What a slay.
Wait,
Shout out to y'all.
Stacy's mom?
Um Don't talk about my grandma like that.
It's a song that I remembered. Now I need it. Sorry, Stacy. We love you. I'm just gonna shut up now. Oh God, no.
I mean, shout out, well, to, moms and grandmas. Anyway, we'll see you on Wednesday for Patreon members. We'll see you on Tuesday. And with that, you all have a good night.
Nighties.